Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Tuesday, October 11th, Lebanon Redevelopment Commission meeting. We'll begin this evening, as we do with every meeting, with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. And Madam Clerk, if you could just note, Dr. Taylor is the only one unable to join us this evening. So first up on agenda items is the approval of the minutes. I believe we all received the minutes last week.
This is from August the 8th.
From August the 8th.
We didn't have a meeting in September.
Correct. We slept that month.
There you go.
So I will entertain a motion on the August 8th minutes.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes of the August 8th Redevelopment Commission.
And I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion does carry. Thank you very much for that. I see no old business on our agenda. That's what preempted the last meeting, lack of agenda. So move straight into our new business. We do have a facade grant program presentation, and Mr. Derek Warren is going to join us for the 500,000 foot overview.
Good evening, Commission. I believe we went over most of the changes last time I presented this. The committee circled back around with myself and a few of the staff members to kind of drill it back down to what we all thought was probably going to be the final presentation. And basically nothing changed from the time I was here in August, except for the owner share amount and maximum grant for categories 1 through 6, which essentially ends up being cost of improvements between $0. I'm not sure if you can have an improvement for $0, but nonetheless, $0, all the way up to $40,000. So from $0 to $40,000, any project, any eligible expenses that fall within that that frame there would be 25% owner share and 75% for the maximum grant. So essentially, we took it down to, as you see in the paperwork that was submitted to you prior to the meeting, from 15 categories down to 10. And again, 1 through 6 were combined into what is now the new category 1. And as you can see listed, that's 0, again, 0 to $40,000, 25% of eligible costs are the owner share, and 75% of eligible costs would be the maximum grant. I'm happy to go over some of the added language again, if you would like me to. Unused funds was one of them, applications outside of the grant scale, and exhausted funds, we define that better, and roof replacement, what was eligible there and what isn't. So I'm happy to read those word for word again if you would like me to, if you need me to, or answer any questions that you might have based on the information that was submitted prior to the meeting.
500,000 feet. 500.
Okay.
Any questions from the commission?
Yeah, what changed, what was the 50, we did it down to 10 things, right?
10 categories, yes.
So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 are gone?
11, no. Categories 1 through 6 were combined into category 1. Category 7 through 15 remained the same. Category 7 through 15 became 2 through 10.
Yeah. So essentially the thought process was, so it is only 10 total for the new resolution. The thought process was the first 6 or 7 spaces were fairly close together, and we could be more efficient and kind of even the playing scale, if you will, by pulling those together to the 40,000 mark.
Yeah, essentially, when we started looking at those categories, outside of the original Category 1 and Category 2, most of them were at that 25-75 split anyway. So now the lower categories, 1 through 3-ish, just become a little bit more weighted for the owners to have a little bit more share in there.
Any other questions from the commission? So with that, Rob, I think we're going to read at least a portion of this in, correct?
Okay, thank you, commission members. Resolution 2022-10 is a resolution that establishes and funds a grant program for structures in the Lebanon Downtown Historic District. Whereas the City of Lebanon, in conjunction with this Lebanon Redevelopment Commission, has established a historic building preservation grant program to promote historic preservation and to assist property owners within the boundaries of the Lebanon Downtown Historic District to meet historic preservation standards. Whereas the RDC recognizes the current policy for establishing caps on facade grants adopted by the Historic Preservation Commission has not been impactful because of limited availability of funds. Whereas to promote an incentive to the district building owners, the RDC is committing funding for a cost-share grant program. The RDC will be awarding the grant program dollars only after an applicant has been issued a certificate of appropriateness from the HPC. Whereas past grant programs have only funded facade-related projects, this grant program, in addition to facade preservation, will consider funding projects related to the structural integrity of the building, including but not limited to foundations, floor and ceiling joist, load-bearing elements, and electrical services, all as described in the attached Exhibit A that Mr. Warren has discussed and you have seen. Now therefore, the Commission hereby accepts and adopts the grant program as described in Exhibit A. The Commission hereby instructs the Clerk Treasurer to budget $250,000 each calendar year for a 5-year period starting January 1, 2023 and ending on December 31st, 2027. This resolution shall be in full force and effect upon passage, but no earlier than January 1, 2023.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Just a quick note from me on this. You know, this is an allocation of $1.25 million over a 5-year span. But the biggest thing in here for me is the carve out for larger deals. So when you look at some of our really key buildings in our downtown core that have failed to work on their inner workings of the building, I challenge you to come in front of this board and preserve those buildings. You look at something like the Heflin building is a very big piece of our downtown. We cannot lose that building. We're losing parts of it right now. I was down there this weekend and, you know, there's part of the cornice is gone and it's not great. So I would love to see those folks in front of us to take advantage of this program where we can partner with private folks to make these things happen and keep those buildings alive. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. So any other questions or comments from the commission? So with that, I would entertain a motion in regards to,
There, I have a question about, are we going to change the name of the program? Or are we going to keep the word facade
well,
program?
facade's included, but in the verbiage, it
I
also
saw-
includes
I
the
saw all
structural
those
integrity.
things. And I don't agree with all of those items. I really don't. I mean, I don't,
In terms of the structural integrity pieces?
yeah, I mean, where does the owner of the building have to be held responsible? By themselves. They're getting all the profit from whatever they have. I mean, I own property. Nobody's gonna help me pay for it or anybody else that owns it. That's my point.
Well, we also spent $300,000 plus last year to tear down one of these historic buildings because they didn't take care of it.
Well, I
So
understand
when you
that.
look at between that, and again, we've put in, as a city, we've put in hurdles that make it more difficult in that core because we want to maintain a historical presence in the downtown. So when you look at, the Pioneer Building, they could go out and put in plastic windows, and it would be substantially cheaper than the project they put in front of us for $200,000 to $300,000. They could do that. That would pass all of the zoning in a regular area. But because it's in our historic core, we're gonna make them jump through hoops. And I think that's what a lot of folks don't necessarily take into account. Yes, they still have a ton of skin in the game, but it's also substantially more expensive to work on these old properties. And you have cities literally trying to build what we already have. Mayor?
Thank you, Corey. And I would say, Councilman Campbell, I understand your perspective that, these are properties that they should maintain and upkeep, and they charge rent for it, they should put it away. I hear you, right? But the challenge is that sometimes a lot of these buildings are part of our fabric of our downtown, and losing them would impact more than just that property owner, right? There are ancillary impacts that happen to the entire community, the entire downtown, when our historic character is lost. And just can't be replaced, right? You look at where, the Forza building is being built. There used to be buildings like all the way down that way, so both sides of the street. So I understand where you're coming from, that there should be skin in the game, there should be, there has to be a pride in ownership from the owners of these buildings. I don't disagree with you at all, but I do think we have to understand and recognize that the preserving our history is an important part of what a community fabric that we have here. And once they get so far down the road, they can't be saved anymore, right? And we'd rather help them keep them, right? And maybe, sometimes this is a realization for the owner. It says, hey, I'm in over my head here. Maybe it's time for someone else to come in here and do something else with this that they can run it. But we'd rather try to be proactive and help, because there is a larger impact of these buildings than just a standalone home somewhere else in town. So that's kind of where it's a little bit different versus just maybe a different situation. But I hear where you're coming from. There needs to be some skin in the game, some ownership there. I understand if you're not going to agree with that, but I do think there is value. We get a far greater return on preserving these buildings to make sure that they're here for generations to come, versus trying to let it fall down. We tear it down, it becomes a parking lot. We try to redevelop it maybe someday, something like that. I think that's a much harder path to follow versus trying to have us come alongside and assist to make sure that we can keep the history. Because even if we are redeveloping them and it comes back as a beautiful new building, we've still lost a historic fabric. And at this point, we've been fairly lucky. We haven't lost anything on the square. We had the fire on the corner, right? But some cities, you go through them and they have what's called missing teeth, right? Where you have building, gap, building, right? Because that building just fell apart, right? It fell down, and they just don't build buildings like they used to anymore, right? And so the maintenance is more, the cost is more. It's part of the overall fabric, and once it's gone, it's gone. And that's why I really feel so passionate about this program, because it does help us keep that history as part of our community. I understand from a free market perspective, maybe this isn't always kosher, right? But I think there are bigger forces that we want. We do, to Corey's point, we put greater requirements on them, and I think it's a fair trade that we then say, hey, if you want to reinvest in your building, we can help you with some things to make sure that it represents Lebanon in a positive light. So that'd be my comments on it.
Excuse me, I might add that, in that last whereas, it says, will consider funding. I think that gives us the option. It doesn't say we will, it just says we will consider the funding. So, there could be an out there that maybe we don't fund all of that, because of something there that we don't agree with. But I think most of this electrical service, as we talked about in the past, used to be on the front of the building anyway, the facade. I don't think we really funded that much lighting service inside any of the projects, have we, Derek?
No, we don't fund any lighting projects inside.
Yeah, I don't think we have either. I think all the lighting that we have helped fund has always been on the outside.
Just light fixtures.
Yeah.
Plumbing, HVAC, electric. don't qualify. Flooring, paint, fixtures, bathroom fixtures, kitchen fixtures, everything that it takes one of these blank slates to get up and running. A vast majority of it, we don't fund. A vast majority of it, I've mentioned several times in these meetings, you don't see those numbers because they just aren't eligible. It's not simply the project that I present that these building owners are investing. It's the acquisition of the property. It's everything that it takes interior-wise to make these a viable space. So the only interior eligible items are the structural items, and that's only 25% of the project. So the foundations, the ceiling joist, the floor joist, anything that helps hold the building up are, again, only 25% of the total project.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Any further discussion from the commission? So with that, I would entertain, what's our resolution number? 10. I would entertain a motion in regards to resolution 2022-10.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2022-10.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second from Dr. Milliman. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. 5 more years of facade and structural integrity program, a very important piece of our downtown. Very excited for that piece. And with that, that is our last agenda item, so I believe we get to move directly on to paying our bills. Would entertain a motion on the claims.
Make a motion, we pay claims.
Got a motion
I'll second it.
with a second. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Claims are paid. Thank you very much. And our most important
Make a
of the
motion to
evening, we are at a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. We will see you at the next regularly scheduled redevelopment commission meeting.
Yeah, I didn't think we paid.